time that we have flown a booster for the third time. And looking at the vehicle here, you can still see the soot from the previous flight. Today we will be attempting to recover the first stage for the third time on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which is currently stationed about 350 nautical miles off the coast of Florida. This first stage will face some of the most challenging re-entry conditions to date, which will make this a tough one to bring back. But if we're successful tonight, this will be SpaceX's 34th successful landing. Now, above the first stage is the second stage right here, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, which ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is what will bring the Nusantara Satu satellite to geostationary transfer orbit, or what we like to call GTO. And speaking of the satellite, it is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which is this pointed cone at the very top of the vehicle. This protects the payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during ascent. But once we've reached the vacuum of space, we no longer need them, so we will jettison the fairing as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. That's a quick look at the launch vehicle. Now let's check back in with Kate for the latest activity on the launch pad.
Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad with the payload early this morning and went vertical around at 6 a.m. local time. The chief engineer held a technical poll at T-1 hour, and launch director held a propellant load and launch go, no-go poll at T-38 minutes. Falcon 9 uses rocket-grade kerosene, which you might hear us call RP1, for its fuel, and liquid oxygen, or LOX, as the oxidizer. With fuel and oxidizer on hand, we need an ignition source to complete the fire triangle. For this, Falcon 9 uses TTEB, which you will see at T-0 via the telltale green spark right before the rocket takes off. Currently, fuel is nearly fully loaded on stage 1, and it is completely full on stage 2. Liquid oxygen looks to be about 85% complete on stage 1 and about 50% complete on stage 2. Once all tanks are full, both stages will continue to be topped off with propellant load until T-2 minutes to keep the temperatures as cold as possible. Low temperatures lead to a denser propellant, and that allows us to fit more propellant into the tanks of the rocket. In addition to the RP1 and LOX on board, Falcon 9 also uses helium, and that's to keep the tanks pressurized in flight and the propellant flowing correctly into the engines without air bubbles as the propellants deplete. Helium load began before the webcast went live, and it will continue to top off until a minute and a half before launch. Engine chill procedures have begun, and that's when we open the pre-valves between the first stage prop tanks and the 9 Merlin engines. This allows a little bit of the cold liquid oxygen to flow into the turbopumps, which brings them down to a temperature close to that of flight temperatures. The super chilled propellant will soon be flowing through those engines at liftoff. So the vehicle remains healthy. We're currently tracking no issues. The payload is on internal power, also tracking no issues. The last weather balloon was launched just a few minutes ago, and it looks like we're within load limits. There have been chances of isolated showers across the Space Coast today, so there was a 20% chance that those cumulus clouds were going to violate our launch weather conditions, but currently everything is looking good for launch. The range is green and is prepared to support today's mission. So with that, all systems continue to be go. Again, today's launch window is 32 minutes long, so if we can't launch right at the top of that period, our backup window will become available tomorrow, Friday, February 22nd.
As Kate mentioned, the payloads being launched tonight are for our customer SSL and include Indonesia's Nusantara Satu satellite. This satellite will bring better connectivity to the region, including improved internet, data, and voice communications. Once it enters service, the satellite will have the potential to more than double the number of people who have access to this connectivity. Here's more from our customer on how this satellite will improve the life for the people of Indonesia.
VSN6 is a very important space provide the first broadband capacity over Indonesia, and I guess the first one in our part of the world to do that.
Hey everyone, welcome to Disclosure TV. We're going to go live with the SpaceX launch. Hope everybody enjoys it. The chat room is open.
First privately funded spacecraft to reach the moon. Its mission is to transmit photos and video of its new home and conduct tests of the environment. An interesting fact about this lander is that it will be using its own power to travel to the moon, which will take nearly 2 months. Now let's check in with Kate for our final status update before liftoff.
We're currently at T-minus 3 minutes and 37 seconds from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of countdown. The first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The first stage should finish prop loading around T-minus 3 minutes and the second stage at T-minus 2 minutes. We're approaching T0, so let's listen in on the countdown net momentarily. Now, at the T-minus 60 seconds mark, be sure to listen for the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. The Nusantara Satu payload continues to be healthy. The F9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather's looking good. Range is green. Let's listen in now.
Stage 2 launch load is closed down. Falcon 9 is on internal power. Gas is ready. Falcon 9 is in startup. Stage 2 pressing for flight. Go for launch. Stage 1 pressing for flight.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Switching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion's nominal.
flight telemetry nominal.
So at T plus 47 seconds into flight, everything is looking nominal. We're currently preparing to throttle down as we enter max Q.
Vehicle supersonic. Vehicle has reached maximum aerodynamic pressure.
So there you just heard we passed through max Q. We'll now throttle back up.
MVAC engine chill.
There you heard the call out for MVAC engine chill. This is the point in which, like I mentioned before, we start to flow the super cold liquid oxygen into the turbopumps, bringing them down to flight temperatures. This helps us reduce the temperature difference between the liquid oxygen and the hardware. Everything looking good with stage 1 trajectory. Main engine cutoff. MECO 1 approaching now.
MECO.
And there on your screen you can see that the second stage engine has lit the gorgeous red-orange glow of that nozzle. We're now at T plus 3 minutes and 5 seconds into flight. Coming up next will be fairing deployment. Now that second stage is in the vacuum of space, we don't need the fairing anymore, so in order to improve our vehicle efficiency, we shed the extra weight. Let's check in on the status of the Falcon 9 booster.
Bearing separation confirmed.
And there you can see on your screen deployment of fairing.
Bermuda acquisition of signal.
While Stage 2 is doing its job, Stage 1 will be coming back home to Earth, and it will also execute 2 burns, the first of which is the entry burn. First stage is traveling at roughly 2,300 meters per second, and this 3-engine burn helps to slow the stage down. The second of the Stage 1 burns is called the landing burn. This is a single-engine burn that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly from about 250 meters per second all the way down to 2 meters per second in order to gently land on the drone ship. As I mentioned earlier, for this mission, first stage re-entry conditions are predicted to be the most challenging for any recovery attempt to date. It is possible that we might lose our camera feed during the landing attempt due to the drone ship's position over the horizon, but if that happens, we will bring you an update as soon as we re-establish connection. Stage 1 landing should occur about 25 seconds following second stage engine cutoff. The entry burn will be coming up here in about 2 minutes. It is T plus 5 minutes and 27 seconds, and we're just under a minute until the entry burn begins.
Stage 2 on nominal trajectory.
So on your left screen, you can see the first stage coming down, and you'll see a bright light when the entry burn begins there. We're just about 25 seconds away from entry burn. And you can also see on your right screen the second stage.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
Stage 1 entry startup.
And their entry burn has begun. This should last about 18 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn. Shutdown.
And entry burn is complete for first stage. Next, coming up at about T+8 minutes will be a rapid series of events. This will include the first second stage engine cutoff, or SECO-1, the start of the landing burn, followed by the first stage landing. SECO-1 and the landing burn will occur within 4 seconds of each other, followed by the stage 1 landing shortly after that. And we are at T+7 minutes and 22 seconds, so we're just under a minute to SECO-1.
Terminal guidance.
Stage 1 entry transonic.
And that second stage engine is glowing bright there. When SECO-1 starts, that engine will turn off.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
Stage 1 landing startup.
And we have SECO-1.
Okay, shut down.
Stage 1 landing weight deployed.
It sounds like, there you go on your screen, we do have a successful first stage landing, despite the challenging conditions there. And we also got confirmation of stage 2 in good orbit. Now we are about to enter the coast phase, so we are going to take a quick break, but we will be leaving you with an animation that shows you where we are in the coast phase. We will be back at about T+26 minutes for second stage relight and the first deployment.
All right, everybody, welcome to Disclosure TV. Thanks for joining us watching the space launch. I'd like to let everybody know today we started our first Periscope episode, and it went pretty well, I think. But the reason I'm showing you all SpaceX is mainly because SpaceX wasn't allowed to launch until they said okay to the government about launching their satellites. As of right now, just as you've seen on the chat, as we put on the chat, the FCC still hasn't granted any private or commercial space agencies or companies, even worldwide, the license in order to launch private or commercial citizens into space. Right now, the only thing they launch is government-funded satellites or satellites from other countries that the government says is okay. And that's basically why all of a sudden SpaceX started launching satellites all of a sudden. And that's why they got a huge leap, is because basically they're playing along. I don't see really any private citizens launching into space anytime soon, and any company that advertises that they are going to in the near future, at least in the next 2 years, it's not going to happen. It'll probably be 50 years or so before a private citizen will be launched into space. I could probably guarantee that. You know, even, and the way I take that is that a person owns or runs their own company, makes their own product, is going to be the first one to test out that product. Just like when the first company first decided to make the first car or the first radio or the first TV, the head guy is always going to be the one to try it out. And just like what owner doesn't try out their own stuff? I mean, a guy created the Ferrari brand. What makes you think that he wasn't going to test that? He wasn't going to drive that thing? What makes you think the person who created a car, any car or bike or motorcycle, four-wheeler, the creators of all these vehicles, what makes you think that they didn't ride them themselves? Well, they did. So the question is, what keeps, going to space is a little different. The government doesn't know much about going to space as much as NASA does. But NASA is a private company, was a private company until they decided to work with the government, and then it became a government company. And SpaceX is probably going to be the same thing. I don't see SpaceX ever launching private citizens. And right now they're just playing along. Why hasn't a man like Elon Musk, why he hasn't launched to space yet? Why he hasn't publicized that yet? It's because he's not going to space, and private citizens can't go to space. And if I had my own rocket to go to space, you bet, and it was safe, and I knew it was safe, you best believe I'm going to go to space in it. I'm going to be one of the people going to space. You best believe it. So the fact that you have all these companies, and the only one that's allowed to send anybody to space is NASA, basically, even all over the world, NASA is the only one. And yes, the FCC does have control of airspace all over the world. Even other countries have to okay it with the FCC to launch satellites and rockets. And yes, that is true. So you have to think, why hasn't a person like Elon Musk launched himself into space? You think he didn't drive his Tesla Roadsters? You don't think he tested any of that out of himself or drove that himself? The man has a rocket that takes you to space and to the moon, and he hasn't been on it yet. The government's still handling all that part of that portion. They say who goes to space. Now, I watched a video the other day or last night, and I believe in space, but I watched a video last night that made me think something else. It was kind of weird. And while we're waiting on that, I might show it to you. So give me a minute and let me find it, and I'll show it to you. To the 4 people that's watching my live feed right now, thanks. I appreciate it. The chat is open if you're watching it. But right now I'm going to show you a video of something I watched last night that was just mind-boggling to me. It was just so weird. And like I said, I do believe in space. I do believe we've been to space. I believe we've been to the moon. But I just want you to watch this video really quickly. It's just weird. I've never seen anything like it. This video is from John Caleb Warren. I don't know if he lets people watch his stuff or not. But you know what? We're going to watch it.
East Pacific are just beautiful. This blue, this aqua that comes up against the dark blue of the other part of the ocean and the islands is just magnificent. It's just so beautiful for me.
Hey, this is Dave from marketing again. What is the most challenging thing about wearing a spacesuit, and what improvements would you like to see in future spacesuits?
Hey, Dave, excuse me.
In the
I'm going to rewind that a little so you all see it. But this guy right here, this is about strings, wires. Now this guy does a flip, and he tugs at a wire. He tugs at his pocket, but there's nothing there. Look at that. There's nothing there. There's a fake wire there. Look. His hand doesn't grab his pocket, it grabs above the pocket, and there's a wire there. And that just freaked me out. And like I said, I believe in space. I believe we went to space, but I watched that video and by John Caleb Warren. And it's just freaked me out. Margaret, there's a lot. You're not the only one. There's a lot of people that believe space is fake. And like, if you look at this video, if you see at the top of her shirt, you could see something protruding through, like there's a wire there. And this is back to the guy that tries to grab at nothing that's there. And the reason they say that is because of the computer software they're using, which is showing something in front of them, but it's not really there. And it's just so weird. It is so weird. I've never seen anything like that before. Sorry, I'm going to click back off. I just checked to see if the live broadcast was back up. Yeah, Mary, I had never seen them since last night. And I watched it right before I went to bed. Like this lady is showing you exactly what the guy would have been grabbing at. This lady is showing you exactly what the... And it's just weird, and I thought about that, and I was like, you know, he was tugging at that wire and there was nothing there. And then I watched this video, and then I put two and two together, and I was like, I see what they're talking about now. I see what they're talking about now. Margaret, do you have the link for that, or is it easy to find? Yeah, it's hard to believe, you know, what anybody tells you anymore, especially what you see on TV, because all that stuff is chosen for you, and some things are made to look fake, some things aren't. And that goes along with what I was saying about why I am actually broadcasting the live feed for SpaceX. And it's how SpaceX all of a sudden was allowed to launch, but the only thing they were launching was government satellites, and they were launching satellites that the government said was okay, but however, launching for themselves, launching stuff for themselves is launching stuff for themselves is a no-no. And as I found out, the FCC hasn't given anybody a license to privately launch a citizen into space, and they probably won't do so. Not for the next, at least, I'm going to say at least 25 to 50 years. And I think all that, we're going to Mars and all that's probably not going to happen in the next maybe 30 years or so. And it's things are starting to add up that, you know, like I said, I'm a firm believer and we went to the moon and all that. And I know people don't believe that we went to the moon, but, and some things are just showing me the opposite of what's going on. So it looks like we're going to head back into the live feed, and I'm going to go back into that.
Approaching SECO 2 in 10 seconds.
MVAC shutdown.
And confirmation of MVAC shutdown there as that red glow, and confirmation that the MVAC shutdown there as that red glow slowly begins to fade away. Now we're just going to wait till we have good orbit. And we just had confirmation that stage 2 is in a good orbit. So at this point, we'll be coasting for the next 5 minutes or so, and we will be back just after T plus 33 minutes.
So I guess we're having another break for right now. But I've seen a lot of stuff through the NASA live feeds and all that. You know, even through the SpaceX feeds, I've seen objects fly away from the Earth that shouldn't have been flying in that direction. And a lot of the times, if you watch these SpaceX live feeds, you actually see things that doesn't make sense. And it's just weird, man. Some of it's weird. Yeah, they do, Margaret. They have some great technology. I mean, they're making robots that look exactly like people. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Army may have something like like 4,000 androids, possibly. That's what I hear. The technology that is being invented or that the military has is 80 years, at least 80 years ahead of what the public has. So, I can't explain all the stuff that space, about space. And I mean, I'm smart, and I was in advanced chemistry when I left high school, or when I was in high school. you know, and I've done nothing but research and research and research. Anything I can get my hands on over the last 20 years. And when I go into a research, you know, if I go into research on my channel, I'm unbiased about it. And either way it goes, whatever the evidence comes out to being is what it comes out to being. Right now, if you look at your screen, well, it's gone now, but a sliver part of the Earth was, you could see the blue part of the Earth showing up. And, you know, we can have a live feed from space for stuff like this. And, it, you know, data from the moon to the Earth during the moon landings in the 1960s, I think there was a delay of 2 seconds or so, right around 2 seconds. And for Mars right now, for Mars, I think the delay is maybe around 2 minutes or something like that for data, because the way it travels. So for us not to have a live feed on Mars right now, or for NASA to not put a live feed on Mars, that's just weird. Why we don't have a live feed on the moon, and why we don't have a live feed on Mars, or any video coming from either one of them, is just beyond me.
Now you should be able to see this on your screen.
SpaceIL, spacecraft separation confirmed.
And we've got confirmation of separation. And you can kind of see that there on your screen. It's a little bit bright there because of the sun, so it's very difficult to see separation there, but we've had a successful deployment of the SpaceIL lunar lander, a first non-governmental lander to make its way to the moon. Here's a little more insight on its journey to space.
Spaceflight makes getting to space easy and affordable. We have years of experience helping customers execute their missions, providing rideshare on nearly every launch vehicle in the world. Our team supports you through every aspect of your mission, from design and licensing to integration, launch, and deployment. We're proud to take SpaceIL on this historic mission to the moon.
In the beginning,
But you can actually see all these SpaceX launch vehicles that they send to space. You can see all them. You can see the satellites pass by. And you know, the Air Force just does while the government just doesn't let them do what they need to do. You know, just like I guess it's like anything else. You know, the government had to get their hand in oil. They had to control that. They had to control vehicles. You know, they had to control everything. The transportation department. You know, all that. You know, that's just stupid for them to have to do all that. When really that's commerce, and in the Constitution protects our right to commerce no matter what the government says. You know, so why they have to be a part of everything and control that much and say, you know what, if we don't control it, you can't do it. That's actually unconstitutional. So, you know, that's why they're not, why the FCC is not granting licenses to these private companies to launch people. I have no clue. I don't know whether, to go with the other conspiracy theories that space is fake and it's not real, or the military is just trying to control everything and there's stuff they don't want us to know. There's a theory that right now that we are battling aliens out in space, and that's the reason for the sixth branch of the military, the Space Force. There's a lot of theories, and we need that proof as citizens, and we need proof to what's going on. Right there. So, the government constricts a lot of stuff from us, and they constrict, and the media plays a big part in that. They don't. There's things that they're not even allowed to play on the television because of news embargoes and I can tell you this, that over the last 3 years, 3 years, that the amount of satellite launches or launches into space has increased over 1,000%, going from 1 to 2 a year back in the 90s to having 6 or 7 a week now. And it really started going even higher over the last 2 years. It was odd back in 2004. President Bush signed an executive order ending NASA's space program. But also at the same time, he said, we want to go to Mars and we want to put a Mars base. But I want you to build a space vehicle, some space vehicles to take you there. Now, the reason for them ending the space shuttle program was because it was too expensive. And then he turns around and says, we want to cancel that. It's too expensive, but I need you to build more. And then in that same year, a few in that same year, it was said that if anybody knows anything about the asteroid Apophis, that same year, Apophis was scheduled to, or was said to, going to hit Earth in 2028. And then they all of a sudden they want to go to Mars and put a Mars base after they see Apophis approaching Earth.
What?
Like a few minutes ago, and now we're just waiting for our final, our last deployment that we'll be able to see.
So we're going to
today,
get back to
Nusantara
the live
Satu.
feed for
That'll
a few
be coming up
minutes.
just in a few seconds. Seconds away from deployment. And there you can see on your screen visual confirmation of deployment for the Nusantara satellite. And with that, that brings our webcast to a close this evening. Thanks to SSL, PT Telkom Indonesia, SpaceIL, and Israel Aerospace Industries for entrusting us with tonight's mission. Thank you also to the 45th Space Wing for range safety and to the FAA for licensing today's launch.
And we'd also like to thank all of you, our viewers, for tuning in tonight. Follow our website and social media platforms for updates on our next missions and milestones. Until next time, have a good night.
So, Margaret, to answer your question, I thought about this last night, actually, that same exact question. And the only thing I could come up with was that, you know, if space is a hoax and NASA's a hoax and it's all, none of it's real, the only thing I could think of is that it's just a big money grab. And it's just people stealing money from the people of the United States, because there's billions going into the Air Force. There's billions going into the Air Force for satellites. There's billions going into NASA. There's billions going into these private commercial companies. And you got to think, that's a lot of money. And when stuff like that is and the reason for the hoax, if space really is the space program really is a true hoax, the reason for such a big cover up is that the United States needs to have a trail of where the taxpayers' money is going. So if they can spend a few $1 million creating a hoax to cover up billions of dollars that are being stolen from the people, that sounds like an everyday corporation would do. That's just an everyday thing that happens, all over the United States every day. I mean, 99.9% of the time, when the government does anything, you can bet your ass that money is the reason. You know, if you've got $200 billion that you allocate to NASA for a space program, and you need a paper trail, and so you make a few videos, or you make a few videos of people going to space or something like that, and you spend a few $1 million doing that, you've got yourself billions of dollars. You know, so, you know, but like I said, that video feed, that video I watched last night of the guy with the wires, I didn't know what I was going to find watching that video at all, but it made me think. So, all right, everybody, thanks for watching. I am out of here. This is Disclosure TV. Thanks, Margaret, for watching. There's a few other people that watched. It doesn't say who you are, but thanks for watching, and subscribe and comment and share my videos. Like them. I'm also on Periscope under the same name. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you on the flip side.